Here I have an SGI Indy I got from my school. The serial cable connects through this thing, which is actually like a common connector for like Sun computers. It's also used on some old Macintoshes, although the pinout's slightly different. It's going to DB25 to DB9, and a gender changer, and then this goes to a null modem cable, which goes all the way up here to USB. And I actually have to like turn it on and off a few times to get it to work correctly for some reason. Which is a little bit odd. Also, if I've been going to raves in Massachusetts recently. This is tomorrow by Green Dream. Go follow them on Instagram. Also, all these DJs, search them up on Instagram and also SoundCloud. DJ IB Unlimited, cool dude. Deprogram, Will, very cool, very cool. So make sure to go follow them. Also, one of my friends is making YouTube videos, so I'll make sure to put that in the description too. It's connected at 9600 baud. It'll come up with this. I can click Start System, and that will start booting from the net address, which is, well, it'll get it from the DHCP server, which is like 10.30.53. So Grub does work. Note about the DHCP server: if you have a failover one, the next server and file name has to be on both, otherwise it won't work. Make sure it's on both. What's another interesting thing is loading the kernel doesn't actually work. You get this error, so we can go back to the start here, and we can enter the commands thing. It's pretty similar to like boot. So to have it net boot, you have to set the system partition to boot p parentheses colon. You could also, instead of having the colon there, you can put a file name if you want to like change it. Net address is actually supposed to be unset, but it got it through DHCP, so now it is set. And then you have to have diskless set to 1 if you want it to net boot. For some reason, it doesn't actually auto boot, and I'm not really sure why, because auto power is set, and so is auto load. So I'm not entirely sure why. But when you first power it up, the net address is something random. So you have to actually do unset and then net address. And then over here, we have this. This has some good documentation. I'll put this in the description of the video. This has some good documentation how to get it net booting. And it has these two commands, which the Debian wiki also has here. Basically, it doesn't quite work. You can actually get a kernel to run directly. I haven't actually gotten it to work for some reason. Mostly because the only one I could get to work is these ones up here, and they're super old. So, like, Woody, Squeeze, Jesse isn't actually too old, but this one did not work. I'm pretty sure these two upper ones did, but they're too old. An interesting thing is loading the kernel, as you saw, it doesn't work. But loading this older kernel here does work. The newer kernel is too big and will overflow the system memory or whatever's going on in there, and Grub will fail to load. But this problem here also happens on a virtual machine I made. So I don't think it's actually the kernel seg faulting. I think it's Grub trying to load it and it's faulting. So I actually make the images with this little script for all my NetBooty little goobers. I actually had to compile it. You can't use make standalone for another one unless it's like compiled specifically for that. So for some reason, it didn't work. If I tried to use the normal make standalone with just the mips-arc directory, it would make like problems. There would be like little preamble was wrong at the beginning to make it boot. So if I uncomment the second one, it doesn't actually work, which is a little sad because it's too big. This one obviously faults. Interesting thing is, even though it is net booting and it should have some sort of firmware to like tell Grub that there's a network card, it doesn't work. So that's something interesting. But I haven't turned on compression, so maybe like compression will work. But I have to have like only some of the modules, otherwise it'd be too big again. So and another thing is for TFTP, you could have multiple V's here. I don't remember the file name. Like it's in some config file. This. You can add multiple V's there, and then it'll show like that it's grabbing the file name. It's pretty useful for debugging because when I was in the DHCP server, I didn't realize that sometimes it was grabbing it from one DHCP server that didn't have this little thing here, and the other DHCP server did. So it depended on which one got there first. So yeah, this is the kernel that does work. You need this to have the like TFTP server. This is the IP of the TFTP server, and for some reason you need a fixed address and then the file name over here. So if we go over here, you can actually have the Windows NT 4.0 prompt, which emulates like the ARC system firmware. So that's why it's like -arc over here. That emulates the ARC firmware. And same like kind of ARC thing over here. From the Magnum like computer. So basically you can install Windows NT 4.0 on the Magnum machine that QEMU emulates. But Windows, when it ships for this machine, it has an emulation layer for this ARC, built-in EEPROM thing. It's kind of similar to like how U-boot works, or like a BIOS works. So I can actually use that and then load in Grub-arc, which is like an ARC payload. So if we do file grub.exe, it's that, right? And this ARC firmware can load that, and then there's like an interface that both of them can use. So I actually made this little Docker file to make a bootable disk image. So it's multiple steps. The actual rootfs does not work. I think that's just like a problem with like Docker. I personally like Podman, but they're the same thing. Builds Grub, and then Grub.exe actually makes it. Then rootfs makes the rootfs. apt has a like an aneurysm and takes like all day, or debootstrap does. I'm not really sure why, but you can just put any kernel there. It doesn't really matter. You can just wget it from like Debian or like Arch or something, and then final just kind of packages all of the different things into image. Note about booting the SGI Indy. By default, my compiler was not using the correct architecture, so I had to set the actual architecture for it. Otherwise, it would emit invalid instructions. This is also the emulator is actually little endian, where the Indy is big endian. So that is a pretty big difference. Seeing I can't like interchange these files, but if I do this, well, that's a little big. I can go in here, and I can do run setup, initialize system, and there's like a tutorial online on how to get Windows NT working inside QEMU. You just follow those. I'll put one in the description as well. Just set the default configuration. For some reason, the like QEMU like EEPROM save data doesn't save sometimes, which is very strange. But that's why I have to redo this now. Add boot selection, SCSI hard disk partition 1, and it's actually a FAT partition, and it just loads like the MIPS executable. So instead of OS loader.exe for Windows NT, it's actually just Grub. Yes, this is actually for Windows stuff. Grub just doesn't care. This doesn't matter here. And then for some reason, here it crashes, but the EEPROM should actually be good. So if I go exit this, yeah, so I can start Windows NT now. So I click Start Windows NT, and it does actually load into Grub, which is really cool. And this is like 99% sure this is unsupported. And this was never intended to be like this, although like Arc was supposed to be like a BIOS alternative for MIPS and probably other things like Spark or something. They're like surprisingly similar. But what happens is, oh, that's interesting. Well, what ends up happening is it faults when it's loading in the kernel. So let's. Oh, I can't actually select it. I'd have to type it out. I actually think prefix. Oh, it's just not there. Interesting. Oh, man. Final. Oh yeah, it's kind of a rather large partition size. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why it didn't work, but let's try this one more time. Windows NT, and yeah, I'm not sure if this is the same issue that's over here. So if we go back up here, escape. Oh. I don't think it is, but very similar errors. And once again, I haven't really looked into this too much, because I'm just playing around in my free time, but just definitely an interesting thing I found. Also, if you actually look in the Grub source code, so if we go back into the Grub source code over here, shoot, I'm not sure where it is. I think it's Grub shell. Yeah, so over here, this just doesn't work. MIPS, like this is their like shell system. M Magnum QEMU ops. Whoops. For QEMU it does work, but for the ARC platforms, Indy isn't even a target or like a machine that you can do. So I'm not like entirely sure why they have this here. Magnum, I mean, well, it is a target now. It doesn't actually do anything, so I'm not really sure. And I don't think they've actually done any CI on these two -arc targets. The other one, the -QEMU ones, do work though. Long Soon is like popular enough that I'm sure people have tried it. Like, I have friends that have that platform, and I'm sure they've tried it. But as for mips-arc, there aren't too many systems around anymore, unless you got one from your school. So, GNU people, please fix your stuff, because you're currently not doing CI testing, and this doesn't work. Although, actually, there's a commit recently, like 2 weeks ago, that fixed this and changed it to Magnum. But, like, it still does not work. Yeah. I guess that's it. At some point, I will like to get the QEMU actually working. QEMU actually working so that it can run Linux. But as of right now, it doesn't, which is a little bit sad. And I would actually also like to have my Indy also net booting. There is a way to have it auto net boot, but I couldn't figure it out. I'm also a little scared about the power supply, because if I'm gonna have it running like my other machine, the Spark system, Nextra X1, then I'm a little bit afraid that it's gonna explode. I already replaced the capacitors, not all of them, and the other one I replaced the capacitors, but then it still exploded. There was a bad like RAM stick, and it caught on fire. It's quite dramatic, and then it later took out the power supply with it. It was like a bang, and the power supply blew after the RAM took out the motherboard. I don't know if it worked. This one works, so I haven't really touched the other one. I also do have an O2, but the case on that is crumbling under its own weight because it's left out in the sun, and also the RAM is bad in it, and there's only I think it needs like a minimum of 2 sticks, and there's only that minimum, so taking out one of the sticks just doesn't work, so it's a little bit unfortunate. Anyways, have a great day, everyone.